folks, or good morning. It's almost afternoon. I hope everybody's enjoying the Fendt day that we're having, and hope everybody's learning something. It's always interesting to be a part of it and watch. I believe the value is there for new operators for sure, and also for experienced operators. There's always something new to pick up on this day, I feel. The last portion of this part is service tips. And just go over some of the service related items. Maybe I should start with introductions. My name is Lawrence Hoover, service manager here. And I also want to introduce my colleagues. Fry here. Dwayne Fry here. He takes care of the hay equipment and steel skid loaders and Manitou and that sort of thing. He does help out on the Fendt side as well. And then we have Alan Martin, who does precision ag. He does massive compacts, lower horsepower, and he also helps on the Fendt side and very much involved with the precision part of it. So we work together as a team, and you will, if you're a Fendt owner, you will likely be talking to either one of us, but my specialty is Fendt tractors and high horsepower. So we have a service team here in the shop to try to look after customers and our needs here and your needs. We have around 15 technicians. We have around 7 service trucks. That includes a boom truck, smaller services and so on the farm. These are a very vital part of what we do because, small things show up and people seem to value service calls more than what they used to in the past. Our service team here, we sent them out for factory training and we also have that is a once a year in the winter thing, kind of get the updates and so on, new products, whatever. So we try to stay on top of all that. We also have some that are registered in regular trade school. Our technicians are very enthused about the product that we work on here. Everybody likes to work on these Fendt tractors. We usually go over the Fendt Gold Star customer care program on this part of the session because it's a valuable part of what you've got. And I think most of you probably already know what it's all about because that's part of the reason probably why you invested in this brand. But it's a 3-year, $3,000 warranty. It's parts and labor. And that includes the services, which is a bit unusual. But I don't know what the brands that do that, but the services are part of the warranty, so it all gets taken care of and paid for by AGCO. The first service, maybe I should first mention that the emissions warranty is 5 years or $3,000, whichever comes first. And that includes emissions related components or failures. So the first service starts with the 50 hour. So soon after you get this tractor, take delivery, you'll have 50 hours. And just give us a call. We'll come out and do it on the farm. Not much involved, but the front end soil, and a couple of minor things. And then the second service is 500, and the third is 1,000, and then 1,500, and so on. The 2,000-hour service is the biggest service. It includes all the fluids and all the filters. And there's oftentimes other service related items that should be looked after around 2,000 hours. And we'd like to have the tractor at the shop if possible at that time. It's close to 2 days of work to do that one there. So like to have it at the shop, like to remind on that point every year. There is something different about having a tractor at the shop versus on the farm here. We can work more efficiently with the parts here. We can go a little bit more in depth and so on. It benefits you and it benefits us. As part of the Gold Star program, AGCO is also offering annual services now. So if you're an owner that only puts on, say, 200 to 300 hours, 400 hours in a year, you hardly get the value of your service program. So each Fendt tractor owner is entitled to one service per year, regardless if you hit the 500 hours in a year or not. It's a minor inspection and a service. So just so you have that in mind. We obviously try to keep track of things as much as we can, but that one there is tough for us to watch. So we will depend on you as a customer to call in if you're needing that one there. We do have Fendt Connect, which you will hear about or you have heard about, where we can look at your hours, we can look at your location, all that stuff. And we do keep an eye on that. But that's not just, we still like to put the onus on the customer to call us when it's time for a service. So we will get a service reminder on our computer within the same as you will on your digital, on the side display terminal when it's within 100 hours of service. And at that time, I usually make a work order and then I'll wait your call for when you're ready for us to actually do it. Forgot to mention that annual service thing only applies to tractors that were sold after April 2020 and going forward. It does not apply to ones prior to that. I also want to mention that warranty does not include things like service call charges and trucking and belts and light bulbs and wipers and that sort of thing. They classify that as I'm not sure what. But just in case, the service calls is always a question. And service call charges are usually, in my mind, reasonable. We like to work in bunch service calls together, split up the charges between different customers. And from my perspective, I think that use that fair in that sense. So doesn't really have to hold on at the end of the day. Part of the Fendt Gold Star program is also the 48-hour uptime loader program. So what that means, if you have a breakdown and we can't get your tractor going in the next 2 days or 48 hours, then AGCO owns your loader free of charge. Not sure if that's something we should really promote and push, but that is a fact. I'm a little hesitant because sometimes we don't actually have a loader that's available, and especially if you have a specialty tractor with say whatever that is. Sometimes we can't get you exactly what you need, equal options, but we try to work with it in some way or form. And that loader program definitely helps you with that. It's not just because it takes the pressure off. Yes, keep working on. So that is a great option, I think, as far as a great feature, I should say, on these tractors as well. The last warranty is at 3,000 hours over 3 years. So, and it's important that we don't go over the 3,000 hours for the last service. That is very important. because the warranty is expired at $3,000. So the last $3,000 service we want to do prior to 3,000. We can do that within 150 hours of 3,000, and any other service for that matter. We have a 150-hour grace period here or there. Last one to check over is important for you. It's also important for us. We try to call after our customers when we see that their warranty
Just move
is
the mic up.
expired.
There it is, good. Yeah.
We see that the warranty dates are expiring, so we try to call after our customers and remind them that that's what's happening. And then we'd like to do a last warranty check over. It's not something that we necessarily is required of us, but we feel that it's a customer service and we want to look after the tractors and our customers and so on. So last warranty check over usually happens at the shop, but we can do a check over at the farm and see what all comes up, and if it's major, then
Flip it down again, Lawrence.
we can decide from there whether we do that at the farm or when it comes back to the shop.
Ask Ryan if he can hear you. I don't know. Does that make, just ask Ryan if he can hear me.
Ryan, can you hear me? I didn't complain about.
Yeah, we can hear you, but I think the headset is disconnected. It seems like Leon, when you talk, it's louder than when Lawrence is talking. So some of the headset must have got disconnected, but it's okay. We can keep going. If you have a chance, try to connect the headset again.
Turn-
Headset is disconnected.
Is that what? I turned the video off.
I can.
Perfect.
So Ryan, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Ryan? Okay,
Perfect.
so we're online again. Okay, so we carry on. We were talking about last warranty check over. I think we're done with that. After the warranty is off, customers sometimes do the small services themselves, and that is fine. But we'd like to put out an awareness of some things, primarily about types of oil and engine oil and so on. It's very common that customers do their in-between services, and then every 1,000 hours that Maple Lane gets involved because there's more to do, and also check overs and so on. But we have behind us and on the floor here the services. So what you see here is what all will get used on your tractor in the lifespan of the warranty. So from 50 hours to 3,000 hours. This is the oil and filters that get used, which is part of the Full Start program. We just brought it out here so that you can physically see that there's a fair amount of stuff for the lifetime of the warranty that gets. So what I see is value, basically. Here's what we want to point out is that there is value here. And this oil here that we wanted to point out, we have good old 15W40 here, and we have 10W40 synthetic. This is Deutz oil. We have 10W40 synthetic here again, but this is for the main engine oil. So 3 different types of oil for the Fendt tractors. If you have a tractor that is prior to 2011 and it does not use depth fluid, then this is the oil that has always been used, 15W40. That's traditional. We like to change that every 250 hours. It's not a specialty oil, it's a regular non-synthetic. But then if you have a tractor that has depth fluid and it's after 2011 and it's Deutz engine powered, then this is the oil. And it is important that that proper spec of oil gets used. There's a lot of things that come into play here. It's an emissions tractor. Try to keep the rings from carboning up by burning cleaner and so on with this oil. And then, yeah, that's why there's a whole bunch of different factors that come into play on reasons why you use the proper spec of oil for the certain level of emissions tractor. And then if you have a 1000 series or a Gen 6 900, then that's your main engine oil there, which is just something to keep in mind. It's not how we like it. We wish we'd just have one kind of oil, but it seems to be a part of our life. And there's many more different specs of oil there for different applications as well. But this is just on the fan side. And then here we have our Permatrans 821XL Plus extended life hydraulic oil, which is for the transmissions and the hydraulics. That's also a specialty oil, extended life oil. It's good for 2,000 hours, which is a long time, but it's a high spec of hydraulic oil, and it's important that that gets used for these vario transmissions that we're utilizing. Maybe I failed to say that this 10W40 synthetic is 500-hour interval oil as well. A couple of things. In the winter time, we have a PM360 promotion that ACRE promotes and McLean promotes. And at the end of the year, we try to put out a flyer to our customers that there is this promotions on from January, February, and March. So if you have a tractor, this is for off warranty situations. If you have a tractor that's coming off warranty or off warranty and it needs service, January, February, March are the preferred months for you as a customer to do it, because we have special discounts in that time frame. 50% discounts for parts, which is significant. It adds up. And hopefully at that time of year, we're also slower and we can get through the shop quicker. That is the whole idea of the off season. So just keep that in mind for off-warranty situations. And we also offer, Midlane also offers a pre-season check order. If somebody's interested, I would recommend it because it's actually good for you. Again, it's also good for us. But the whole idea is to keep the people up and running. So if you want, for a $285 charge, that $295 flat rate charge, we can do a 50-point inspection on your machine tractor. We will fine-tooth comb it, look for things that could fall apart in the next season and so on, and then we'll call you as a customer to make recommendations of what should or should not be done on repairs. So it's surprising what that sometimes brings up. And the whole idea is to keep you up and running when you want to be up and running in the spring rush or throughout the year. And if we have done a preseason check over it, you do have something that shows up, we do try to give you priority service when there is an issue the following season. So this is open for questions.
Ask Ryan if there are any questions.
Okay.
Ask him. Ask him.
There's nothing
okay.
here, Lawrence, so you can keep going at this point.
Yeah. Okay. The next step here is the tractor walk around. So we'll move over to the tractor. First. we just want to point out some things on the tractor that are of interest. Here is the toolbox. In the toolbox, there's a few items of interest. This is a manual drive lever. So if the electronics fail, you can always drive these tractors in manual mode. There's a hole down, there's a lid in the floor of the tractor. This thing pokes down through the floor. And you can drive the transmission manually, but you're limited to a certain speed. And you just get live home or whatever. You have an extra cable stuff here. Cord here. Should mention where this block heater cord gets plugged into. It's on the other side. Block heater cord is a special end, and here's the plug. Plugs into there. Then this plugs into your regular wall receptacle, but it's kind of hidden there, so it's good to know.
What does it all warm up, Lawrence?
Yeah, so the block heater warms up. There's a block heater in the engine, there's a block heater in the transmission oil, and there's also in the hydraulic oil. So there's 3 different compartments that it heats up, and that's up here in Canada. That is something that we need. On this side of the tractor, here is the hydraulic fill. So there's a gauge in the dash to show where the hydraulic level is, but this is where the fill is. So this lid comes off, then you dump your oil in there. That's an important thing to point out because on these tractors, the transmission and the hydraulics are separate. And there's a gauge in the dash for the hydraulic oil. And we can move around to the back to show you the transmission fill. Well, maybe we should look at the battery first. There's a battery right in this area here. And here's our battery. So if you want to boost your off-color tractor or whatever, this is where you hook up to it. And then we go around to the back end. Show the training field. And this is an important thing to point out because, and here's the dipstick. There's a mark down here. Many times, too many times that I get calls from customers who have tried to fill up their hydraulic tank back here. And meanwhile, nothing changed on the dash gauge, level gauge. So they dump more in and nothing changes. And then I usually get a call, but it's important to know because you overfill these trainers too much, like 2 or 3 pails overfull. And if you're driving the road a lot, it will overheat the oil and could create potential damage.
So Lawrence, I'm just wondering if while you're at the back of the tractor, could you show the power beyond and the case drain and all those ports and just explain which one does what?
Great. Okay. Yeah, so there's all kinds of stuff. Like the air glad heads, this is all optional stuff. Air glad heads for air trailer brakes.
Standard on 700s. Here it is. Yeah.
And then we have your ISO plug. But then power beyond for hydraulics. If you're doing planters and that sort of stuff, you'll want your power beyond or you use it. So this here is 0 pressure return. This big oversized so-called Pioneer coupler that's a 0 pressure return port, but that you'll still have 2 to 5 psi back pressure because it goes through the return filter. Here beside it is loads case drain. This is 0 pressure case drain. It's free flow to the tank. So this is where your orbital motors and case drain gets hooked up for your planters or whatever you have on the back end. And it's not always the same on whether your tractor will have it or not, but I think we try to have them on all our new tractors that we order in.
they're supposed to be on it, but there's definitely a lot of older tractors that don't have it. And then here's your Power Beyond pressure port. The big female coupler, that's pressure for Power Beyond. And this is hydraulic load sense for Power Beyond. Your load sense, you need a 3-line load sense. You need zero Power Beyond pressure, your load sense, and your zero pressure return to make that system work. And then the optional part is whether you need a K-straight or not. You'll likely have questions on how to hook that up, depending what kind of equipment you have. And here is your hydraulic trailer brake. So the green cover is hydraulic trailer brake. All of these things are optional, but I think that we try to order them on all the new tractors. But that's not to say that an older tractor might not have it on there. I do get a lot of calls on that stuff there, and probably will continue just because. PDO stuff, to change the PDO stuff, you got a ring of bolts. You got a spacer that comes off first, and then there are PDO stuffs in the toolbox there, and you swap it around, put the spacer back on. What else is there back here?
Hydraulic relief valves to release the pressure on the hydraulic valves there.
Oh, here. Couplers here. You got 1,
Yeah.
2, 3, and 4. And double connect under pressure couplers. If you want to pull the hoses out, you just release the pressure with these here levers here. You probably know that the yellow and the blue are actually hooked up to the loader. So you can't, if you're using loader work, then you can't plug your equipment in the back end to yellow and blue, because that won't work how you want it to work. You'll have to use red and green. If you want to, if you disconnect the loader, then you can utilize the yellow and blue couplers at the back as well, if you need all 4 remotes for something. But you have to disconnect the loader for that. Coming around to this side here, we have the engine oil fill is over here. I don't know if you can see it. Engine oil fill and dipstick is in here. These tractors are phenomenal in many different ways, but we still have to check the engine oil level. It's a part of maintenance. Years ago, I was taught to check the engine oil level every morning before you start the tractor. And it's actually still the same, nothing's changed. So keep that in mind. And I'm saying that because even though Maple Lane will do the service under warranty, it is still up to you as a customer to watch those levels as the operator. It's all in the owner's manual, stated that way. I'm sure most people know by now, we're in 2022, what the blue cap is. It's a depth fluid fill. This is where you fill the depth fluid, and this is where you fill the diesel fluid. And don't mix them up for your own welfare. If you do mix them up, you'll only make that mistake once. There's a lot of damage that happens if you put diesel fuel in the depth tank, or which I don't know how you do that because it's spotless water, but some people have. Or if you put depth fluid in here, just basically wrecks the whole injection system. So it's important to keep those separate and show your new operators, your young drivers, tell them all about that. It's very well worth your time. I think I'm ready for inside the can.
Yeah, hydraulic level and stuff. Is that what? Yeah.
Just another question, Lawrence. This question that was chatted in: why Fendt uses a ring of bolts to change the PTO as opposed to a snap ring? Is there a reason? Are there benefits? A lot of the other colors only use a snap ring. Why do we do it this way?
I'm not sure why it is this way.
Can you hear okay?
Don't have a good answer there. It is just how it's always been done, and I agree that the snap ring idea might be simpler, but we have bolts and I can't change it.
There's probably pros and cons both ways. For myself, I like the bolts. If you have an impact, it's easy. You don't have to worry about finding needle
Yeah.
nose pliers and getting that snap ring out. So I guess there's pros and
Yeah.
cons either
Yeah.
way.
So in the cab here, what I wanted to point out the hydraulic level gauge. It's on the center display of the dash, and you have to press the escape button here to toggle between the hours, or no, I should say temperature, and the hydraulic gauge. So that there gauge is a little bit critical to watch because that level does go up and down depending what you're doing with your equipment. And that's what gets filled up on the side there by the right hand steps. Another thing that we want to point out here is the field and road portion. You got your high and low range shift here. That's field and road for the transmission. And you probably understand all this stuff, but in low range, you'll have top speed of approximately 20 kilometers an hour, 18 kilometers an hour. In high range, you can go 50 kilometers an hour. But the low range needs to be used in the field for tillage work. It's important that you know, as a new operator, know that, because if you're in high range for tillage work, for one, the tractor might not pull as well, but it'll also do things like could damage the transmission, overheat the oil and stuff like that. And you'll get codes eventually to tell you all that stuff, but it's here for a reason. You need to know that you use low range in the field for tillage work and high range on the road. Now, I often get this question asked, and that is, what if I'm doing tanker work? It's not really pulling that hard in the field. And I would suggest stay in high range there. If you're in and out of the field all day long, on the road and off the road, not pulling that hard in the field, then just use high range and leave it there. Just an awareness. Codes, area codes are on the dash here in the front. These 4 green buttons do the center display. And if there is a problem, then you'll have a code comes up. And the first thing that we ask you is, what was the code? And if you don't know what the code is, we can always go in and look at the storage codes. So if you press the enter button, you've got the triangle flashing, you press that again. Now here's this area code bank. In this case, you got 14 stored codes and 1 of 14. So the first one, if we toggle with the down arrow, we'll get to 14 of 14, which generally is the last code. And we can toggle through them and see what they all are. In this case, we want to clear them out. So we hit the enter and we hit all 4 buttons at the same time. That'll clear them out to 0. What else is there? We sometimes have questions on this terminal about the regen procedure. We got the main menu here. We go to the regen, which is under transmission engine. And we got the puff of smoke. And then we've got the soot loading bar graph. It tells us that the last regen was done 100 hours ago on this one. And if your tractor is telling you that you need to do a regen, then I would recommend you actually do that. Because if you keep escaping the code and the request, eventually it will actually derate you to the point where we as a dealer have to come out and reset it with a laptop, and that's annoying for us and for you actually. So it's a bit of an awkward thing, because regens, you have to stop for like 35 minutes to let us do his regen, but you'll have blocks show up here like green, orange, and red. You never want to see the red one, because that's when we have to come out. But if you have green, orange, at that point you can stop and do a regen, and this is where you started. This button will be highlighted where you can start it. You can hit it and it'll tell you to do a couple of prerequisites, park brake on and so on, but it'll do it all by itself. You just hit the button and it'll take care of it. The RPMs will go up to like 1800 and so on, and it'll sit there for 35 minutes while it does that. Having said all that, generally you don't have to do regens in between services, because when we do services, we will do the regen. We will do a standstill regen every 500 hours when we're hooked up to the tractor to do the services. And if everything functions the way that it should function, then generally the operator does not have to worry about that part. So, but it does come up nevertheless sometimes. Sometimes we have questions or people call in about the tractor not going full speed, only 40 kilometers an hour. There's different things that can create that scenario. Settings in the display here included, but this is one that just came up in the last couple of years, where the brake pedals are not connected. There's a little latch here in the brake pedals. And here they're disconnected, so you can use your left and right brake. At that point, the tractor will only go 40 kilometers an hour. It's a safety feature. It's they call it mother regulation, and it's a little bit of a pain, but that's how it is. Just keep in mind that the pedal has to be together. So if it's like that, you'll be good to go. And even in that situation, now you'll get a code on the dash telling you that the brake pedal switch is not connected. So in the owner's manual, it's an amazing amount of information in there, especially in the maintenance manual. Everything you need to know about maintaining, doing the service and that, it's all in there. And the codes even are in there to tell you what it all is. But so it's the information's all there, but if there's trouble, you'll be calling the workshop. That's just how it is. So I sort of think that's all I have. I hope that you're learning something, and I'm going to call it quits.